So as I mentioned to you yesterday, we're going to talk about solving equations today, writing equations, linear equations, and the first place we need to start is right here. We need the slope and the y-intercept. If we have those two things, we can always write an equation. So our goal when we work through these problems is to come up with those two things if they aren't already given to us. In some cases, they're going to be given to us, and then writing the equation is going to be really easy. In other cases, they'll give us a slope, but not the y-intercept, and we'll have to find the y-intercept. And then, in some cases, we'll be given neither, and we'll have to find the slope, and then we'll also have to find the y-intercept. So those are the three types of problems we're going to be looking at today. And the form of the linear equation that we're most familiar with is slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. M is the slope. B is the y-intercept. And what we're going to do today, we are going to focus just on this equation. And we're going to use that equation multiple times. And we're going to keep it in slope-intercept form. We're not going to be putting equations in standard form like we did for 2-2. We're going to keep them in slope-intercept form. So let's start with an example. If I said write a linear equation if the slope was 6 and the y-intercept is -7, I want you to write down the equation for that situation. Please do it now. Thank you. Now, after you're done, if you think you have the correct equation, I want you to turn to somebody near you and compare and see if you have the same thing. How many of you had y equals 6x minus 7? Raise your hand. Okay, very good. This is as easy as it gets, right? If they give you the slope, you just plug it in for m. If they give you the y-intercept, now if you had plus -7, that's okay. I would get out of the habit of having two signs next to each other like that. All right. So if you get a problem like this, it's super easy. You're good to go. Keep in mind, what is the y-intercept again? Let's think about what that is, what that means. What is the y-intercept? What does it actually mean? Okay, so when the x is 0, well, y, in this case, y is -7. But conceptually, what's happening with the line at -7 here? It crosses the y-axis at -7. The y-intercept is the point where the line crosses the y-axis. Okay, so if you were given a graph, most of the time you can find the y-intercept just looking for where the line crosses the y-axis. That's going to be an important point that you want to look at later. All right, next situation. Sometimes you are given the slope, but not the y-intercept. You can still write the equation for the line if you're also given a point that lies on that line. Now, some of you may have learned point-slope form of an equation. I'll be honest, I don't teach that. If that's something you know and you've remembered and you like to use, you are welcome to continue to use it. I prefer that you only have to memorize one form of an equation, and then we'll just use that for everything. So slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. I like to use that for all the different scenarios so that we don't have to memorize multiple formulas. One formula is enough. Okay? So if you're given the slope and a point on the line, you can find the y-intercept. So again, the idea is I still need the slope, I still need the y-intercept. But sometimes they don't give you both. But if I'm given a slope and I'm given a point that lies on the line that is not the y-intercept, I can find the y-intercept, and then I will have the slope and the y-intercept, and I can write my equation like we did on the last slide. So, here's an example. We want to figure out what the equation of a line is that has slope 3 and goes through the point 2,8. Now that point 2,8 is not the y-intercept, because if it was the y-intercept, then the x-coordinate would have to be 0. So that's just some point that lies on the line. Okay, and the line has slope 3. So I'm going to show you how to do this. after you guys get it written down. Now, here's the thing that we know so far, okay? Which piece of information do we already have? Do we have the slope or the y-intercept?
Slope.
We have the slope, okay? So I can start with this much so far, all right? Slope's 3, m equals 3. This is what I have so far. Y equals 3x plus b. I don't know what b is. I don't know what the y-intercept is, all right? The only piece of information that I haven't used yet is this point over here, 2, 8. All right, and since I know that 2 represents the x and 8 represents the y, I can plug those things in for x and y and then have an equation with only b in it that I can solve. Okay, and then once I have b, I'm basically done. And so that's the goal here, is I'm going to use the point that they've given me and plug it in so that I can solve for b, which is the y-intercept. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. And that's what this says. We can find b because we have a point that lies on the line 2, 8. And that's where we're going to plug those values in. Okay, look like. So I'm going to plug 2 in for x, and I'm going to plug 8 in for y, and then I'm going to solve for b. All right, and that's what this says here. Since we have any point, so this is the steps. So the things that I've been saying now you can write down in your notes. So that you, when you go to do problems on your own, let's say you forget what to do, the notes all tell you exactly what you need to do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 and put it in place of x, and I'm take 8 and put it in place of y. And that's what I've done down here. So what's 3 times 2? 6. So what's b have to equal? 2. 6 plus what equals 8? Okay, that's one way to look at it, right? If you wanted to, you could solve it, subtract 8 from both sides. So b equals 2, which means now I have the slope and the y-intercept, so I have everything I need to write the equation. So what's the equation that has slope 3 and goes through to 8? The final equation. Y equals 3x plus 2. Okay, that's my final equation. This is the work that I need to do in order to find the y-intercept. I already had the slope. Okay, so when you have problems like this, so one of the things you're going to want to do as you work through your homework is go, all right, which category of problem am I dealing with? Did they give me slope and y-intercept? They did, okay, I can plug them in and I'm done. Did they give me a slope and a point on the line? If they give me a slope and a point on the line, this is the process that I need to use right here. Okay, that's what you're going to do every time you get the slope and a point on the line. Okay, that's that kind of category. There's one other kind of category that we're going to look at today. Okay, are there any questions on this before I move on to the next slide?
No. I haven't finished writing.
Okay, slide. So here's an example for you to do on your own. Okay, so same category, slope and a point. Find the equation, go. So, we already know the slope, okay? Y equals 2x plus b, that's where I've started. Alright, we gotta find the y-intercept, so I plug the point in. Okay, so when I plug the point in, 4 goes in for x, 12 goes in for y. Simplify down here, b equals 4. So my y-intercept is 4, which means my final equation is y equals 2x plus 4. How many had that? Raise your hand. Very good. Alright, that's that category. Slope and a point. The last category that we need to look at is 2 points. Okay, so we've got, given the slope and y-intercept, super easy, plug it in. We got a next category, slope and a point. We got to find the y-intercept and then we're done. All right, in this case, they've given us neither the slope nor the y-intercept. So what should I do first? Yes?
y2 minus y1 over x2.
Which is, what are you doing?
Finding the slope.
Finding the slope. We're going to find the slope, right? When you have 2 points, you can find the slope. So that's what we're going to do first. Okay? We don't have the slope or the y-intercept, so we can find the slope. So guess what you should do right now?
Find the slope.
Very good. Do that, please. Here's what you should have gotten for the slope. You should have gotten -2. -2 minus 2. 3 minus 1, that's -4 over 2. So I have the slope now. Now here's the next thing, okay? Once we have the slope, bless you, we can find the equation because we actually have 2 points. Okay? And we have a slope and a point. Now, here's what I want you guys to do. Let me double check before I do this. Okay. And it doesn't matter which point you choose. And I'm going to tell you today, for the purposes of this problem, which point you're going to use. Because I want you guys to see that it doesn't matter which point you use, you should still get the same equation. So, here's what I want you to do. So, everybody on that side of me is going to use 0.12. So you 3 rows over here are going to use the 0.12 to find the equation. Too bad. Oops. You guys to the right of me are going to use 3, -2. Okay? And let's see if you end up getting the same point. Same equation. Go. So let's look. Now, I've done both sets of work. For the left, I used the 0.12 just to show you that I got y equals -2x plus 4. To the right, I used the 0.3 -2. I get the same equation either way. The point is, and first off, hear this. Listen very closely. You do not have to plug both points in. Absolutely, please don't do that. My point of showing you this is to make it clear that it makes no difference which point you choose, you will still get the correct answer. Okay? So, you've got 3 different categories of problems that you're going to be working on today. 1, they give you the slope and y-intercept, plug it in, you got your equation, easy peasy. The second case, they give you the slope and a point, you're going to have to find the y-intercept, and then you have your equation. This one starts off differently when you only have 2 points, but once you find the slope, it turns into a problem with slope and 1 point, and then you just plug it in and find it that way.